Here's the paradox. Even as their incomes collapse, many farmers remain loyal to Donald Trump. Economically, they've suffered more than almost any other group. Politically, they still see him as their champion. Why? Part of the answer lies in identity and pride. For years, rural communities have felt ignored by Washington and dismissed by coastal elites. Trump's blunt rhetoric, blaming China, Europe, and globalization, resonated deeply. Farmers didn't just hear a president, they heard someone voicing their frustrations. Even as tariffs crushed markets, Trump framed farmers as warriors in a larger struggle. Many accepted that framing. "If it takes pain to stand up to China, we'll take the hit," one Iowa grower said. That sense of patriotic sacrifice, however costly, sustains loyalty. The bailouts also matter. Billions in government checks softened the blow. Farmers know it's not a solution, but they see it as evidence Trump tried to help. Some compare the trade war to a bad storm. Survive the season, rebuild when it's over. But loyalty isn't limitless. Younger farmers who rely on global supply chains and digital markets are growing impatient. Farm organizations like the American Soybean Association have publicly urged Trump to strike deals rather than escalate. And some lawmakers from rural states are quietly breaking ranks, worried about re-election. Still, the paradox holds. Even in the face of undeniable financial harm, many farmers continue to back Trump. Not because tariffs worked, but because he embodies a fight they believe is theirs. The question is whether that loyalty can survive another season of losses, or whether economic reality will finally override political identity. So where does American farming go from here? The truth is sobering. Even if tariffs disappear tomorrow, the damage is already done. China has signed long-term contracts with Brazil and Argentina. Europe is deepening ties with South America. Buyers no longer see the United States as a reliable partner. Trust, once broken, takes decades to rebuild. Economically, the pain is measurable. Farm incomes are projected to fall by over $40 billion compared to pre-tariff years. Rural debt is mounting, and bankruptcies are rising. Bailouts, $12 billion, then $16 billion, now another $10 billion proposed, may buy time, but they cannot restore lost markets. Farmers don't want handouts. They want stability, customers, and futures they can plan for. Politically, the picture is complex. Trump still commands loyalty in rural counties, but cracks are forming. Younger farmers and farm associations are pressing for deals, not battles. If communities continue to hollow out, the political cost may soon rival the economic one. Globally, America risks losing its superpower status in agriculture. Rivals are not only taking markets, but also setting the rules, investing in infrastructure, offering sustainable products, and presenting themselves as reliable suppliers. The US risks being left behind in a trade system it once led. And yet, hope lies in the resilience of American farmers. They have weathered droughts, floods, and financial crises before. But resilience alone is not enough. What's needed now is policy that values cooperation over confrontation, strategy over slogans. If not, the trade war may be remembered not as a fight America won, but as the gamble that broke the backbone of its farming economy while the rest of the world moved on. They were promised a revival. Donald Trump assured America's farmers that his tariffs would restore fairness in trade and shield them from foreign competition. But the reality on the ground is starkly different. Instead of prosperity, what farmers are facing now is collapse. The numbers speak louder than any campaign slogan. In just the first half of 2025, U.S. agricultural exports to China, America's largest customer, fell by 53%. Soybeans alone dropped 51%, leaving silos overflowing with unsold crops and futures contracts in tatters. Across the Midwest, pork producers saw shipments canceled by the thousands of tons, while California farmers lost nearly $880 million in nut exports. These aren't minor setbacks. They are devastating blows to the backbone of American agriculture. And yet the costs don't stop there. Tariffs on steel and aluminum, designed to protect U.S. industries, pushed farm equipment prices higher by nearly 6%. That means tractors, combines, and storage facilities are more expensive at the very moment farmers are making less money than ever before. Rising costs, falling prices, vanishing buyers. This is the trap rural America finds itself in. But here's the deepest irony. The very communities hit hardest by Trump's trade war are also the ones that supported him most fiercely. They trusted his promise that trade wars are good and easy to win. Now, instead of victory, they are watching their livelihoods erode, while Brazil, Argentina, and Europe seize the markets they once commanded. So the question we must ask is this: how did US farmers become the biggest losers in a war that was supposed to protect them? Stay with us as we uncover the numbers, the politics, and the global shifts that explain this disaster. To see how America's farmers ended up in crisis, we need to look back at how this trade war began. From his first days in office, Donald Trump framed foreign trade as an attack on the United States. He accused China, Canada, Mexico, and even allies in Europe of exploiting American workers and flooding markets with cheap goods. His solution was blunt: tariffs, and lots of them. Trump famously declared, "Trade wars are good and easy to win." It sounded simple. Raise costs for foreign imports, make US products more competitive, and force concessions from rivals. But global trade doesn't work like a one-way street. When the US hit China with tariffs, Beijing responded with its own. And their retaliation was calculated to hurt the most politically sensitive group: American farmers. China slapped tariffs on soybeans, corn, pork, and dairy, products that represent billions in farm exports and lifelines for rural communities. Overnight, farmers saw their biggest customer disappear. The timing couldn't have been worse. Brazil and Argentina rushed in to fill the gap, signing long-term contracts with China that left US producers sidelined. Meanwhile, Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum backfired at home. While they aimed to boost manufacturing, they also drove up the cost of tractors, storage bins, and other farm essentials by 6% or more. Farmers, already squeezed by lost markets, now faced rising input costs. Billions in bailout checks softened the pain, but they couldn't replace markets once gone. Global buyers want stability, and after years of uncertainty, America no longer looks reliable. What was supposed to be a strategy to protect farmers has instead left them exposed, and the damage is proving permanent. Statistics can be cold, but the reality for America's farmers is painfully human. The trade war has left families who worked the same soil for generations wondering if they can hold on for even one more season. Soybeans are the clearest example. Once the engine of US farm exports, they've been devastated by Chinese retaliation. In 2025 alone, sales to China dropped by 51%, leaving silos packed with crops no one is buying. Some farmers have literally burned excess beans for fuel rather than watch them rot. Pork producers fared no better. In a single week, China canceled 12,000 tons of US pork orders, a blow that sent shockwaves through an already fragile industry. California growers, meanwhile, lost nearly $880 million in nut exports. These are not abstract figures. They translate into missed mortgage payments, foreclosures, and empty main streets across rural America. The ripple effect is devastating. A farmer without income cuts back on equipment purchases, skips hiring seasonal help, and spends less in town. That means hardware stores, diners, and local banks all feel the pain. Communities that once thrived on agriculture are now in decline, even with bailout checks, $12 billion here, $16 billion there. Farmers insist money can't solve the real problem. As one Nebraska grower put it, "We don't want handouts, we want customers." And that's the heart of the crisis. Aid can cover a season. It cannot rebuild trust with foreign buyers who've already signed contracts with Brazil or Argentina. For many farmers, the trade war feels less like a policy fight and more like a betrayal. They were told they'd be protected. Instead, they've become collateral damage in a political gamble gone wrong. When US farmers lost access to China, global rivals didn't hesitate. They rushed in to fill the void. The trade war, meant to secure America's dominance, instead created golden opportunities for others. Brazil was the biggest winner. Once a secondary player, it became China's top soybean supplier almost overnight. With U.S. exports down more than half, Brazilian farmers locked in long-term contracts, ensuring their crops would flow to Chinese ports for years to come. Those markets aren't just temporarily lost for America, they may be permanently gone. Argentina followed suit, expanding exports of soybean meal and livestock feed across Asia. Officials there admitted openly that U.S. tariffs handed them an advantage they never expected, and they're investing heavily in processing plants to hold on to that edge. The European Union also seized the moment, brokering new trade deals with South America and deepening ties with Asia. Even smaller exporters like Vietnam and Thailand grabbed market share once dominated by the United States. Piece by piece, America's agricultural supremacy is eroding. The damage isn't only economic. For decades, the U.S. was seen as the most reliable food supplier in the world. Now, unpredictability defines American trade policy. Buyers are choosing stability elsewhere, and rebuilding that trust may take decades. Meanwhile, rivals are investing in the future. Brazil is expanding ports and rail networks, Argentina is upgrading production facilities, the EU is marketing sustainable farming practices to attract eco-conscious buyers. While American farmers wait for bailouts, competitors are building lasting partnerships. In short, Trump's tariffs didn't weaken America's rivals, they strengthened them. And in the unforgiving arena of global trade, the U.S. is now fighting from behind.